Hey, welcome back in, class. It's really great to have you back. This is a time of learning. It's a time of knowledge and time of instruction. And instruction comes mostly to you through me. And that's an important premise that you need to base instruction off of. I hope that you already knew it. If you did, then maybe you're good at instruction yourself. How about the Green Bay Packers? How about big leg Bojorquez? He really has one of the biggest legs in the league. He's big leagues leg Bojorquez. Big legs Bojorquez, probably one of the biggest legs in the game. Probably one of the biggest legs out there. It's hard to find a leg bigger. It's big leg Bojorquez. His leg is so big that it's known far and wide, and everyone can see it. He's ready for the big leagues mostly, though. Big leg leagues. He's always had big league legs. If you're talking about big leg Bojorquez, he's always had one of the biggest legs. Probably one of the biggest league legs that anyone's ever had. If you're talking about have you ever looked back in time and thought about who compares really to big leg Bojorquez? I keep going further and further back in time, and I can't find another one who compares. He's really kind of one of a kind. Well, at least his leg is. Big leg, it's just compared to other legs in history. It's probably, you're thinking about some of the other, like the big leagues in terms of legs otherwise, besides Bojorquez. You're thinking about some of the biggest legs in history, like Abraham Lincoln, probably also Babe Ruth, Barn Swallow Simmons, Portsmouth Townsend, Barley Oatsman. There's really no shortage of them, but just think about who stands out the most. Who stands out the most to you is mostly, it's a matter of opinion. It's not really anybody's right to say, like, this guy had the biggest leg. And it's like, I do get a little bit upset when people have that standard where they're like, this guy had the biggest leg and we already know, and everyone already said he was the biggest leg. So like, that's if we're still not evaluating leg talents. As if still, like, when somebody like big leg Bojorquez comes along and he has like one of the biggest legs, but then when people think that it's a lost art or something, they're like, no, it's already been decided. It's already like Portsmouth Timmons already won it. It's kind of just like pisses me off. Just like pisses in my morning coffee a little bit. Bleeds into my cereal. It's so fucked up. Like, I'm just trying to live my life. And then it's hard to think about when somebody like Big Leg doesn't get recognized because people are like, oh, people think that they already know what the answer is. It makes me sad. It makes me feel indifferent to other things that you're supposed to care about. It's just like a contagious, you introduce negativity like that. I don't even know what leg is the best. It's like, it's big leg Bojorquez or none for me. But I don't think that people see it because they're just thinking about, oh, like, remember Abraham Lincoln's leg? It's pretty fucked up. There are other legs. Sure, there's like alternative legs. There's Darnell Hamilton. There's partly Dentmouth. You know about him, right? God does too. God knows about him too. God knows everything. God has put you under surveillance. You're being surveilled by God. God's surveilling you. God's watching all the time. He's even better than Santa, I guess. I wonder who watches more, like God or Santa or that elf on the shelf. It's one of those three. Like, why do people bring an elf into their home and then they're like I feel like you're just bringing evil on your household. Like people are summoning elves, or they're like, this kind of acts like a real elf where it can see everything and then it like divines right from wrong. Like, where's the elf on the shelf going with this? Where are you going? Where are you going with this, dude? Like the elf on the shelf tells you when your children sinned, and then that's what you tell your kids. This thing is watching you. It's like a real elf, and it lives in our house. Don't you feel? Wouldn't you be worried? I'd be worried about inviting like the spirit of elves into my house. Like, and don't tell me that that's not a thing. That guy who went to Antarctica, Bird, or somebody who went down there, like they adventured in Antarctica and then they wrote in their diary that there's a secret race down there that there's like that he ran into, and he wrote about it in his diary. And it's not I don't think that that's a conspiracy to say that. That's just like that's just fantasy. But if nobody knows, nobody goes down there. I'm waiting for them to be like, oh, the aliens actually believe this. I feel like there's a lot of rumblings in the conspiracy community about that aliens are gonna that like more will emerge about the story and what aliens there are and how they've interfered in the earth. I feel like there's a lot of rumblings about that. Like we're gonna figure out that the aliens know about us, or we have some like place in the galaxy they're just waiting, or something. Like, and the government knows these things, and they're using like alien technology is what gave them Google search tools and stuff like that. Like the CIA gave Google the tools for their search. It's like it's mandated by the government, and like allegedly, yeah, you know what? Talking about it makes it sound implausible, but now that I say that, maybe that's not true, but it's an interesting thought, I think. I think it's important to think about what place you might have in the lives of other alien races. And that's not a waste of time. But it's probably not. I think it's fine. I think it's fine to think, oh, maybe there's something bigger than just, hopefully it's not just we only run into, like, I think that would be cool if aliens came into the picture and then all of a sudden there are all these other planets to go to because their technology advanced, so they like bring us into their galaxy or something. I think that that would be better, and then we could go to other planets. Like if it becomes an option that we can go to other alien planets, I'm gonna leave and move to one of those planets, because who needs to be here, especially when there's a whole other world. I'm gonna move to another planet, and like who, like I guess it's kind of like settling for you travel around a country versus around the entire world. But I guess I don't travel around the world now. But I like that would be, I'd totally move to another world just to do that. Like after a little bit here, I'd be like, oh well, first I have to see what Birmingham, Alabama looks like, but then I'm gonna go to another world, because that's usually, it's just one of those 1-2 punches. Birmingham and then Sequesterlarg, Darnskarben, Merkzerg. I'm yet to come up with a good one. Life on the Bayou, and then after that, Zimparzafir, and then Zernistar, Garbsdalon. Marysville. I can't wait to go to the planet of Marysville. That's going to be fun. I wonder if they sell Hondas there. I wonder if Hondas are sold in Marysville, in the planet of Marysville, on another planet in a different place. It's a Honda manufacturing planet that Honda outsourced. They're like, we need to fund another planet's worth of Hondas because of the so that we can meme our logo to other places. I think that you should consider what the Green Bay Packers are doing, like Big Leg Bojorquez for one. I wouldn't underestimate his impact, probably. That would really ruin your day. I mean, it would come back to you if that was the case, if you did one of those. Don't underestimate the impact of a sentence from a loved one. Don't underestimate the words that are spoken from a cousin to an uncle, or just any one of those. If it's like don't forget about a friend is kind of the same as a family, because you say a friend is this, like friends and family. Oh, loved ones. Let's just call them all loved ones. Don't forget about your loved ones. They're so loved by, and they're one. And then you love them. They are a loved one. But people are like just like volunteer information about their family. Like, I just like, oh, my mom went ballistic when my cousin came over. When my mom figured out that my cousin was pregnant, she got pissed. Something like that. There's like I shouldn't try to do too much. I shouldn't try so hard. God gifted me with the ability to not try that hard, and that's what I access every day. God gave me the ability to say, I don't do that much. I just kind of like sit around, and then I'm a nihilist, and then it's just like God's grace that I go into nihilism, and it's just that His praiseworthy fellowship has granted me access to the holy throngs of nihilism. And that's not lost on me. I think that that's a gift, and there's curses and there's gifts, and it's just the presence of nihilism that's like meeting an old friend. Like, it's just like makes you feel right again and clears up your sinuses. You know, it's just like going. It's just like seeing the sun for the first time again. You know, when it's been so long, but then you can't see the sun the right way without doing a ton of drugs, and then it takes so long to get you back to that level of high to really see the sun again. So you can be like, wow, I finally saw it. I'm saying, like, you know how numb you could be to the sun in regular life, and then you're like, I can only see the sun well when I'm high. What if that was the case? I mean, that wouldn't be a good state of things. God granted me access to nihilism, and that's it's just like one of those blessings in life that I would be remiss to take for granted. Like watching the San Francisco 49ers. Just one of those blessings in life. Watching the Bengals lead by 3 at halftime. Oh, watching the Denver Broncos, probably one of the blessings that you can most easily take for granted in life. The Denver Broncos are the talented rejects. Those are the Denver Broncos. You really don't know. They're all talented, but they're all just like rejects of other teams. That's the Denver Broncos. It's just like it's been such a blessing to really deliver all of these messages to you. This is the post-game press conference from my last episode. So let me turn up the sensitivity on this microphone, because God made microphones sensitive. Do you know that? And it was God's place to do that. God's like, you know what I need to do in addition to all of those other things? Like, I should also make microphones that have like a higher level of sensitivity than the other microphones that they used to make. It's like God's been working behind the scenes. He was making pleiadiosauruses, you know, which is like, I mean, it's good. Plesiosaurus, that's not nothing. God made the plesiosaurus. We're like, oh, forget about that. People try to like write off dinosaurs, but it existed somewhere. And even better than that, we have a lot of imagination. We have a lot of like pictures we can draw of it right now. Or like, see, look at plesiosaurus. You can make a movie that makes a plesiosaurus look exactly like one, the way that we imagine it. Isn't that just as good? You're like, and then they make a virtual world where you can walk around with plesiosauruses and they can't kill you. That's bullshit. If it's not realistic like that, that's fucking horrible. If they make a virtual world but just plesiosauruses, but like there's not the threat of you actually dying, that's a fucked up world. That's just totally, I mean, that's totally imagined. That's one reason why to not do it at all is because of you're not honoring the sanctity of life by letting people die for their mistakes or or something like that. And I don't want people to go into a virtual world where they have safety and impunity from whatever. People, they need to reinstitute building giant skyscrapers, but not with today's technology, so that like 4% of the working group of people on it died in construction, and then we need to make more of them. I think that we need to go back 100 years. We didn't have these standards where people were like, oh, if you get a disease, you're just gonna die, because actually we don't, whatever. We're just kind of like, I think it was before like people started to make lots of money off of saying like, oh, your family and friends or something like that. I mean, but not make lots of money. I'm just talking about like, so it's over time it becomes more marketable, like Mother's Day, Father's Day, and like and family stuff, and that people make like retailers make a bunch of money on Christmas over, and they hold over you the idea of family so that Christmas stays together and shit like that. There's like, but there's sort of family and friends. I would say that the rise of family and friends over the last 100 years makes it so that it's more difficult, like people see each other in a higher regard than they used to, or they should, maybe, because everyone's like, oh my god, my family member. I feel like there was a time when people were like, I don't care about like, yeah, I know someone in my family died, but it's really sad, but we don't make, like, it's kind of more dramatized, I'd say, the family and friends, and then people like try to equate them by saying the family, like my family and friends and my loved ones, and they're like, it's good. It's just kind of, sometimes you have a title and then you don't, like, do you really need to live up to a title of a friend? Like, a friend is somebody that are already, you wouldn't have to, like, a title wouldn't be right. Like, if it was an ideal friendship, the title wouldn't really be a part of it. Or like, the friend is a person that you just end up hanging out with, even if they say lots of shitty things in word or deed, but you would want to still hang out with them or something like that. That's a person that's a friend, but you wouldn't have to title it a friend. Like, a friend, I feel like, implies all these obligations that aren't necessary, but just like depends on your definition of friendship. Depends on if you're more of a literalist, you're like, oh, you know what it means that you're a friend, and we are that title, and like literally, because you're my friend, it comes with like these criteria or requirements afterward for you doing it along with the title. If you respect the title, it has clauses that come with it, because you're just like, it's the word that's important. If you're a literalist and you like the law, or what you're entitled to for being a friend or having one, if you like looking at that and being like, there's a friend, then that's your opinion of friend, rather than like just like figuring it out what would you say, like intuitively maybe, or perceptively, or just like knowing that someone's a friend. Some people are like, well, I don't know, or I can't trust myself to pick my own friends, so it's just like, well, we have to go by the title, and then the title implies these legal things. People do that with friends, they do that with family, and you can be literal about it, like a family, as long as everyone's like, oh, but it's just, I feel like over the years, and with the increase in medicine, people are like, oh, it's the most terrible thing ever if somebody dies, because people have gotten used to being around each other more, because life expectancy went up a lot over the last 100 years. And then and just like, I praise the god of Ra. I praise Amun-Ra for that. I praise Amun-Ra for the increase in life expectancy, and I think that like, maybe give Amun-Ra credit where Amun-Ra deserves it. The god of Anubis needs a little bit of praise this year. I feel like there's some goodwill and good fortune as a result of the benign intervention of Anubis. Obviously, at least a little bit. You can't ignore Anubis's hand in all of this. There are at least 4 events during the course of the last year that you can point to and say Anubis's fingerprints are on that. I don't know in what way, and I'm trying to figure it out. But Anubis gave life to at least 100,000 babies this past year. You can't ignore. That's like Ben Shapiro is on saying that. And by the way, it's 100,000 babies that were born this last year, and it's because of Anubis. There is at least 100,000 babies born in this past year, and it was at least 100,000 of them were because of Anubis. There is at least 100, like, I'm being generous with what I'm saying, like helping you out. There is, in reality, it's more like at least there's 120,000 babies, or as a result of, because of the influence and intervention of Anubis. Duh. How about in The Mummy when that scene I think about all the time, the scene that maybe I think about the most in The Mummy, well, is that the one in the beginning where that army has guns, because I'm confused about the historicity of like what they're wearing. They look like they're part of a religious army or something. But they're in North Africa, but they all have guns. But like, I guess that had been going on for years and years. Like, even since the 1500s, North Africans were fighting each other with guns. Apparently, I didn't know that, but literally they were. And then when the Songhai Empire fell, they were completely obliterated in one day because they just had bows and arrows. And then like the Moroccans were this big empire, and the one that would take over and destroy the Songhai Empire. And the Moroccans got all these guns from Europe, and then they just totally destroyed the entire Songhai Empire army like in one day. And there's this prominent empire for 100 years. That was like, this is a real group of people. And then God's like, oh, by the way, do you know that the hand of fate decided like this technological advancement is going to wipe out your entire populace and religion and belief system? Goodbye to you and your culture. Your culture's dead. See ya. Like, how many times that happens in history? Like, a whole civilization's culture just dies. And I guess Americans probably think that they're immune most of the time, but then there's people that are just nihilists, and they're like, by the way, America, your death is coming. Ha ha ha. It's going to be cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency wins. Only if you're a little bit nihilist do you understand. Or like, I don't know, is it just a fantasy? It's a nihilist fantasy. Cryptocurrency will destroy all nations, by the way. And so there will be no need to have culture outside of money. So, by the way, money is your new culture, so you better get on board with it, rather than say, like, I think that no longer is anybody allowed to excuse something on money. Like, don't come up with that as an explanation or a witty take with something like, oh, you know what the reason for that is because they just want money. Like, I think that the time has passed for us to say that. It's just so repetitive. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's just an empty criticism. It gets repeated over and over again. It's just an idiom. It's just a slogan that people like to use to advertise themselves with, that they hate money, because it's just like kind of a fight more today is you like, well, you get on board with this cryptocurrency. It can help a lot of world problems, allegedly. Not that you know that for sure, but like the finances in Africa will cause them to go through a lot of ages worth of banks, so they don't have to catch up with like the 20th and 21st century banking of America and like Western countries and stuff like that, and stuff like that, like Western countries, stuff like that. But like, they can catch up with the world banking if cryptocurrency becomes the biggest thing. Then there won't be all of the regulation and filtering done by these giant corporate banks that have lots of power to like monopolize things, or and just regulate a lot of other people who try out of existence, or like destroy a lot of other participants, people with lots of power. The big corporate banking system, how much power they have over like shit like Africa, besides the other problems in Africa that have to do with money, like the oligarchs that sell out 20% of the world's resources worth of wheat for like politicians to come in and make speeches for them, and for other things in order for them to maintain the empire the same way, the same leadership that takes advantage of the people. Like, there's oligarchs in Africa, and Jesus made it that way. And it's all right. It it's just like a political thing. I was telling you about a political take of sorts. I was leading it. It was just, but then it became, let me know. Well, I want to let you know about some of my knowledge in some areas, but like I do, and it's just that some of the knowledge. And here's the thing about knowing that's really crazy is that there's a word. I think it's yida, if I remember the word, that means knowing, that they use in the Bible, that they use like for when Adam had sex with Eve and had Seth, and they're like Adam yida Eve, and it's a word for knowing. Adam knows Eve, and what I heard in this podcast, I heard this podcast where they said that like Adam knows Eve. They use the word yida, it's like a Hebrew word that means to know. And so what it implies is an interpretation of knowing things that's actually active instead of like textual. And so that's also the way that God intended it. But what I'm talking about is that the like Hebrews and Easterners, this is what I heard in this podcast, is that Easterners have an interpretation of the Bible or of books themselves that's just more more interpretational and up to symbol or something. They take the entire story into account, but in the West they kind of sensationalize single verses. But like, it's interesting that in America, in churches, a lot of times when we interpret the Bible, there we look at the entire text, and then like a lot of times we get these really popular celebrity verses, and there's just certain verses that surface out of the entire thing. And like, I feel like a lot of times in the church, from Bible passages that I hear, it's kind of about sensationalizing a verse rather than fixating on the entire context that contains the verse. But there's just like important, like really famous verses like that are just the cornerstones of certain sections of the religion. Like Baptists really like John 3:16 and Romans 6:23 and Romans 3:23. And I guess like probably, I don't know what Catholics would like, but um, I feel like a lot of Protestants do that, where they sensationalize the verses. But I hear that Easterners, it's just kind of like, but it's what I'm saying is that if you're in the East, you have a more active version of knowing things, and there's like and that's really cool. And I heard, and that's just really cool. That's a really cool thing. Did you hear that cool point? That's just like that's such a cool point. Wow. That's just such a, wow, I can't believe that's such an interesting point. Wow, I can't believe you said that. Wow, what an important sentence. I can't believe that sentence out of your mouth. That's probably one of the most important sentences that anybody's ever said. Is that like the third or fourth most important sentence? That thing about textualization? Do you learn? Does anybody want to learn? And now I will condemn you with a lesson about textualization. First, you have text, and then you have context. And context contains text, but context is like the outer frame containing everything, and then the text within the frame, like objects within the picture. That's text. Context, and then let me say it as if I'm pretending to talk into a microphone, but with a real microphone here, but like a handheld microphone, because that's what's important for society. Everybody's been waiting for this, and that's what's important for society, and that's what's important for it. And like I wonder how long God's gonna reign. I wonder how much longer, or like how long he's going. From what I hear, he can reign a pretty long time. Like, God's still reigning. Like, I try to hang out with my friends. I'm like, no, I can't really. I think God's gonna reign tonight, and so I won't be able to come out. God's kind of reigning in my life right now, and so like I won't be able to tonight. Is that all right? Maybe another time. It's just kind of funny. But what I'm talking about is text and contextualization, and there's really just a lot of beauty in fragmented beauty in fractaling, spiraling in all directions, that people just don't really. I mean, you know, you ever hear those sentences? I just totally psyching you out. I don't really know. I just like screwing with people, really. I think that that's part of it. I like to screw with people, but And then it's just hard for me to admit that. It's hard for me to get to that place. So you're not really allowed to go to a psychologist and be like, I just like to screw with people, or like fuck up whatever they think is cool, or you know, or like I kind of just like to. I just will feel better. I feel I'm much safer if I'm destroying something that somebody else likes. You can't really, like, that's not the point of going to a psychiatrist. The point of going to a psychiatrist, I feel like, is to tell you like, well, you have anger issues and then you need to do this, or it's not really to accept like a negative energy, or like anxiety is negative energy and then you're supposed to practice getting rid of it. I guess it is. I feel like anxiety is actually things that you don't know most of the time. I feel like consistently across anxiety is that it's just like a negative feeling that you don't know what the answer is, like shit that you don't have an answer for, or shit that you can't control about yourself that you need to fix in order to be successful or whatever, catch up with the pressures and expectations of society, and then like you don't measure up comparatively speaking, at least you think so in your head, to other people with certain standards or certain identities that they have, and it's just like results from a lack of communication across a society to tell people like, oh, it's okay to think this way, or whatever, and have these problems, or not like measure up to other identities or groups of people. Or it's like if there's not enough communication, people think like, oh, like if there's more pretensions and not people actually saying that, oh, I got to this place by eating a lot of shit for a lot of years or something. Like people, I mean, if you look up to people who are really exceptional and you think that they didn't have problems along the way or something, that's like communication that isn't great across the society results in people just anxiety, where people don't know where they stand, and like problems that they think that they have. It's like, oh, I basically, like, you can get anxiety from thinking that basically I don't exist in reality because the only reality I know is like a person that looks like this or something, and like not measuring up, or thinking that you don't, and things that you don't know about that doesn't matter, and like things that you can't answer for, or ways that you feel defined that you think that you can't overcome, and they're just like really big issues. Anxiety is just a much greater in scope issue that lasts over many years. You're just describing, but it's kind of like you wouldn't really. It's really amorphous term that has lots of things that you could say about it, and it's worth it, and yeah, well, that's 32 minutes, and see you later. I don't think so. I don't think that that's what's happening. Not as long as Marquez Valdes-Scantling is on my TV screen. There will always be something to talk about. As long as Marquez Valdes-Scantling is catching passes, I don't know how I can rest on this earth without mentioning what things I've seen, without telling my story. If Marquez Valdes-Scantling is catching 15-yard passes, I'm not going to go quietly. I'm not just going to sit down. That's understood, right? I don't want to be questioned about that. I don't want to be questioned on that either. It makes me sick that people would take something so innocent as Marquez Valdes-Scantling catching 22-yard passes and throw it away like yesterday's news. And it's a fucked up world. But it is a fucked up world. My neighbors, it's like, my neighbors think I'm a retard. And you know what? I think they're right. You know what's worse? What's worse is like I just yell at the TV sometimes as loud as I can when I'm playing Rocket League. Like I don't know if that makes me cool. I mean, it does make me cool, obviously. Obviously, it makes me like rock solid. Aaron Rodgers throws touchdown pass to Aaron Jones, tomorrow's headline. That's the name of the headline. Oh, and he's doing like a pants around his ankles after he went potty dance. Fantastic. there's nothing quite as demeaning to the home crowd as that. It's a little bit Randy Moss-esque. I like it. I think that it's good. I think it's good for the game. There just needs to be lots of anything that they want to do to celebrate. There's no way that like they're getting paid millions of dollars. How does a referee intervene and say like, "Hey, you can't celebrate that"? That's the most ridiculous thing that anybody's ever really come up with. I just don't get when the referees they think that they're such hot shit when they run in from the sideline as fast as they can to be like and with their hand in the air like they really saw where the spot was this time. That shit is absurd. They run in to show everybody watching in the audience there and everybody in the TV audience like, oh, I really saw this spot this time. But it's half the time it's just an act because people are used to them thinking like, oh, it's just this display of confidence. I want to know what crosses the referee's mind before they run in to do that. They're like, well, should I do a sprint and run to show the crowd that I really know what I'm doing? Because that's entirely what my job is based on, is just making poses and bullshit like that and pretending for the crowd and appeasing to the crowd at the right moments. And making poses and just pretending. The referee, I like it that it crosses every one of their minds before they run in from the sideline. Like, well, should I sprint in? Because if I walk in, people are going to think that I didn't see it. Like, they need to know that I'm confident. I mean, but so if you're really confident, then you're a good referee, I guess. By the definition, I'm telling you, it's all about just making the calls. The forces of nature. I like the conspiracy that the forces of nature are that the government knows how to change the weather and they're changing the weather drastically with some technology. But I feel like this is about to happen regardless. We're going to figure out that there is technology to change the weather. And so you don't really know if whoever has it is just changing the weather whenever they want, like when those fucking tornadoes came through, they're like the biggest tornadoes ever. Are people just, is there just some technology that could be changing the weather, I think? And I know that that's like pretty high-minded. I know that that's very open-minded and intelligent conspiracy theory, and most people aren't ready for it, and that's difficult for people to hear. I'm sorry that that's very difficult for people to hear, that there might be some honest truth in that. But that it's just like, oh, the conspiracy, they're controlling the weather. And but I mean, not really. I don't really think that now. There's no evidence for that. It's just kind of open-ended theory, but obviously the government or somebody would have come up with weather-changing technology by now, right? Like based on other things that they can do, and other things that they've been prohibiting from happening, like a car that runs on water or shit like that. Somebody makes an invention that totally changes the system or changes the game, and then it gets outlawed and shit like that. And like they're like technologies that they are protecting the world from, but then they also have access to themselves, like the deep state or whatever. And it's just like, that's a conspiracy. They have technology to change the weather. That's a conspiracy, sure. But what really is a conspiracy is just when there's like 300 medical schools. I heard this guy, he's like one of the most published doctors in America. He was on Joe Rogan. He's like Peter McCullough, one of the most published medical experts in the entire country, or is like actually the top 10 or something like that. And he was saying how all of the medical schools in the country, like UCLA School of Medicine, all the university schools, like Syracuse School of Medicine, any one of them, how every single one of them are following the same protocol, which is just handed to them from above about divert all of the resources towards the vaccine, and don't come up with your own plan to treat anything. And it's like they don't see it as that they have to differentiate in any way. They just get the same standard as that's placed on them, that the same one that the media is peddling, that everybody don't try to fix it with other resources, just everybody operate by the same standard. And then they make all the pathways to be the vaccine as just the one thing that you do, rather than allow all of these schools of medicine to compete with each other to come up with their own methods. All of these schools of medicine don't do anything besides what each of all of the other ones are doing. this is the definition of a conspiracy, is when you have different names of universities. All of them are different names. They're in different parts of the country. They specialize in different areas, and they exist different to do different things, but then every single one of them does the exact same thing, especially in the area where they specialize in medicine, where each one of them have been gearing up for decades, as long as they've existed, as long as they're living up to their title, to come up with new medicines to treat things. But every single one of them is doing the same thing, and it just comes from above. That's exactly what a conspiracy is. It would be ridiculous actually to call that a theory when it's just happening, when all of those things are breathing as the same thing. That's what a conspiracy is, when they're all part of just the exact same body. They all have the same interests. They're doing everything the exact same way when they're supposed to be comparatively different. That's exactly what a conspiracy is. It's the same thing as when every single vaccine that's different companies, they all provide you equivalent treatment, but each one of them is a different vaccine developed from a different company that specializes in a different area. Every single one of them, each one of their vaccines are interchangeable. They're equivalent to each other. That's exactly what a conspiracy is, when all of these groups are supposed to be different, but they all breathe together. They all have the same agenda. Well, I mean, whatever, like, not necessarily an agenda. They just all do the same thing. That's what a conspiracy is. Every one of those groups is doing the same thing, where they're supposed to offer you different treatments, like what is their value. And then if they don't have value different from each other, there's no competition, then they're all defined to something higher up. And you know that that's true because you don't know that that's true. And then life is to be lived. But those are conspiracies. Kind of dumb, I'd say, to call that a theory when it's just happening right out in the open. That's exactly what a conspiracy is. People are like, oh, a conspiracy theory, but they don't even stop to consider that, like, the accuracy of some of them, because conspiracy is actually just a word. They just like certain things meet the criteria of it. It's like, it kind of blows my mind that there's people that are like, well, this pandemic will only go away once everybody gets vaccinated, and if everyone keeps wearing masks. I feel like you're just kidding or something. I feel like you're joking at least a little bit. You have to know that's pretty naive to just like, well, yeah, the way that they're telling us to keep doing, even though nothing's changed after us doing all of the things that they said. Like, I feel like you're joking at least a little bit, or you're okay with a world where there's just more authoritarian, and then you're just using that as an excuse to say, like, well, everybody should. Like, it's okay to like a more authoritarian world, but I think that's it. People just like the liberalness of like, okay, well, everybody should stay inside and listen to authority. I think there's people that like that, and then as their excuse publicly, they're allowed to use the medium of the vaccine, basically. And it's kind of like the vaccine and the virus provides this layer of blame. It's a very popular medium, popular topic through which a lot of people translate themselves, because it's allowable, because it's so in everybody's face and it's so visible relative to everybody. You're allowed to use it to say like, well, yeah, everybody should do it. And then on the other hand, use it to say, no, everybody shouldn't do it. Or like, maybe there's more for people who get angry about the status quo or something. But it's like, even calling it the status quo is an over exaggeration, because like there's tons of people that don't want to get it and don't believe in it, and like people keep protesting anytime it keeps coming up. Like the world is trying to resist it, I'd say. Authoritarianism and take over using the virus, and then like the authoritarians use the medium of the virus to instill fear into you and say that they have all the power, or whatever, like to tell you like, well, you're not medical experts, and so there's no such thing as you getting close to that, and so listen to just that authority. And then all layers of authority, like they're using authoritarians are using the authority of medicine to protect themselves. They're communicating themselves through that medium, medical authority, to further their agenda. Their agenda is something a little bit different from medicine. It's just about control, a takeover. But like a popular thing, I guess, that unites everybody is the idea of a pandemic. That's a good choice or whatever. And they're like globalists. There are people that are tied to the creation of the virus, allegedly. Like, I guess that's just something that some people will never believe, and something that some people will always believe, that the virus was created in a lab. It's kind of like it contributes to myth or something, like, because eventually it's got to be that in 80 years, this is just kind of a really like a profound story of how things went down. And popular conspiracy theory, I feel like there's rumblings of aliens are on the periphery, and then we're going to figure out pretty soon, like more will come out about what our relationship is to aliens. I guess that's a possibility. And then like CNN says, oh, they're coming out with documents, and they do. And anytime that there's a government release of a bunch of documents, it's all like people are like, oh yeah, there's fucking nothing in there, because what would they release? Seriously, they still want to protect themselves. But it's like my neighbors probably hate the shit out of me, but maybe they do. I don't know. I'm not a I could be more friendly, and but you know, we could all be doing better in a lot of areas. I could be learning the guitar more. I don't do that very often. I could be more friendly. It's just that like when there's a will, there's a way, and praise be to nothing like it, nothing like it, and it's um heaven sent too. I I'm not gonna deny it. I'm not gonna chance it. I'm not gonna risk losing it. Um, I'm not gonna. I don't know what word I'm trying to say. I'm not gonna complain or something like that. I'm not gonna complain about Marquez Valdes-Scantling catching a 32-yard pass, but he can kind of catch every single kind of yard of pass. That's kind of true. He catches fewer like 4 yard, but he does catch his fair share of 4 yarders. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and then there's Joe Tessitore on ESPN, who's like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make everybody say the nickname that I came up with here tonight on Monday Night Football, but everybody just hates anything coming out of ESPN because they have no sense of what you're even supposed to say on air. Like, they have no sense of how to be relatable to ESPN broadcasters. Like, even if they're like Joe Tessitore calls Marquez Valdes-Scantling MVS, but literally nobody else calls him that, just because they're like, well, Joe Tessitore, we don't respect your ability to influence pop culture, so we're not. It's not really about that the nickname is bad. It's just people don't have faith in Joe Tessitore, so then nobody calls him MVS. But it's like only somebody who you could have no faith in comes up with a bad nick. So it's like it probably is a bad nickname. Probably like it's really not he just isn't worthy of it, or like it's too bad because it almost sounds like an MVP and it's not, so it's kind of a joke. Like, oh, MVS, like it is kind of a joke because he'll never be MVP. It's just like MVS, it would probably work if it didn't come out of the mouth of Joe Tessitore, but God intended that. I like how Jordan Peterson is like, he comes out, he has all these lectures just about all kinds of things, but then he comes out with a series of biblical lectures and puts them on YouTube. And then he talks about often, in even today, because he's still alive somehow, he talks about today how he's surprised at the popularity of the biblical lectures. He's like, I can't get over it. They're so popular. It amazes me. He's just kind of like, he's one of these people that is able to be addicted to popularity, like kind of the way that Joe Rogan is. So like he could just kind of keep talking forever because he likes, but it's not really a vice. I think that that's a good quality to have. He's like, but I just picture him as being it's kind of like he's a car salesman too. If you want to go down that route, he's like, oh wow, these biblical lectures are really selling. I wonder why. He's just so excited about the prospect of all the money he can make off of it. Not that he's like that excited about it. He's not really excited about the money because he's just like a good souled person. Like it's just kind of weird when people try to detract from people who actually have a positive influence, like in reality. That you would try to say that that's in the name of being progressive, to hate individuals that create all this shit or do something completely new. That's bizarre that people try to tear them down so often. Like just somebody who is successful with a giant ass business or something, anything. It's weird that people like to say that isn't progress, or be like, well, they're just a narcissist, or they just wanted money. I think it's people who hate art, but I guess one of the arguments I have is like, is all art money? I feel like all of it is, but it's just like, classically speaking, might get upset at me for not preserving the sanctity of art, just calling it music or paintings or something. Where I'm like, well, inventions and technology is just art too. And it's all like when somebody makes a new business, that's kind of art. Like it's shitty art, but it's still art. You can't not call it art. Like a car dealership, I think that that's an artistic spin. A car dealership, it's shitty art because you're just like, but you would make money off of it, or like because reformatting cars or reselling them or repackaging them is an art form, or like hiding, even if you're a bad car dealer, you're like hiding things is kind of an art form, or you have to get your target audience that doesn't look for things very closely. Like it's not like being a shitty car dealer is not an art form. It's still art, I'd say. It's just kind of like any invention or any, like all of that is art, and a lot of it is for money. And I feel like all art is just kind of like it has to be for money. But it's like I feel like people would maybe get mad at me for saying like ingenuity, but ingenuity, I mean just inventions and shit like that. That's a lot of art. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of art. That's a lot of, I mean, like that's a lot of art. That's just like a lot of bullshit. You know that like if you dream about shit, apparently this is a symbol for money. That's what it says. And so then that makes me really think that those dream interpretation websites are complete bullshit. Like, what are you telling me? Like I dream about shit, really that means money? Or like is it I mean, some of them are like that, but some of them are pretty serious because a lot of them do offer like these are the negative interpretations. So it's really not all bullshit to like have a dream and the dream representation, because some of those representations people have known or they've like been agreed upon for a really long time. Some of the dream interpretations that you get off a dream interpretation website, if you have a dream and you look up, you try to like, what's your dream symbol mean? Some of them are like, some of those symbols have been around for a long time, or like it's kind of an understood thing. So it's kind of interesting to look up if you dream about something. Like if you dream about poop in your dream, it symbolizes money, apparently. I don't know that that's, but it's kind of like shit is like money. You can, like a brand is like money. You can say everything about a brand that you can about like shit. You can say everything about a brand that you can about shit because you're just like, it's so solid, like it's so solid, it's so consistent. Or I mean, it's so consistent. They consistently put up like it's so memorable. Everybody knows it. It's like, so everybody has a perception of brand. Like you put like the product placement is unimaginable. Like crap has made its way into everybody's home, and it just has such a good brand. Crap, shit is like probably the best brand. It's such a good brand. It's like the brandest of all brands. Shit. It's like, what has a better brand than shit besides the moon? Maybe. Like shit has such a good brown, and the brown that everybody associates is like always memorable. It's so iconic. Shit, they've done so well at selling themselves. Everybody knows when they see an image of shit, everybody knows what shit is. Like it's the same thing for some reason. Everybody knows what shit is the second that they see it. It is amazing what shit has done in terms of marketability. The public perception, but even, and it's just like they know that it's okay to be memorable. It's all about your brand. Like shit is all about the brand, because it's successfully stays in everybody's lives, and everybody in the entire world is universal. How could you deny the image of poop and the impact that it's had on the entire world and what it does? But actually, and it's just like the incredible edible poop. The incredulous edible shit. That's what the geese say that poop in your mouth. I said that's what the geese say that shit in your mouth. They said the incredible edible shit. We're the geese that shit in your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're geese. We shit in your mouth. It's fun for us, yeah. That's some product placement there. That's a brand that I'm opening up. Just the way that God wanted it. Okay, so the Packers are up 21-17. If we get a Marquez valdes-scantling sighting, then I end this podcast immediately. Oh, and there he is. There he is. I just said sighting. I didn't say a reception. That was my choice of words. And I'll end this now. Talk to you all in at some point, I guess. Goodbye. You are the weakest link.